Welcome back. In this lesson, I'll give you a brief description of the geography of France, location, neighbors, size compared to others, topography, mountains and rivers, winds. The best known is the Mistral, but it's not the only one, population and density, and even a bit about wildlife. France is located on the western tip of continental Europe, as you know, with 7 neighbors. Across the Channel to the north, the British Isles, then Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, Switzerland, and Italy, with Spain across the sea, and let's not forget tiny Monaco near Italy and Andorra on the Spanish border. France is over 500,000 square kilometers large and has over 3,400 kilometers of coastlines and over 4,000 kilometers of land borders. But you won't find many checkpoints because there are no physical borders within the European Union any longer. That's the Schengen context. Those checkpoints have been closed after the 1985 agreement signed, you guessed it, in Schengen, which is a small village in the Netherlands. European citizens and anybody who managed to get in can travel freely within the Union, just like the US citizens don't have to show a passport going from one state to the next. People from outside the EU are controlled at their ports of entry. After Brexit, British travellers now know what that means. They've discovered the waiting lines, as you can see here in Dover. Here's a little map overlay with France placed under the map of the continental US. The total area of France is over 211,000 square miles, making France smaller than the state of Texas at just under 269,000 square miles. And you can see that Australia is about 14 times bigger than France. Back in Europe, let me tell you about a peculiarity you may not be aware of. France and Spain share 2 regions, so to speak. In the southwestern corner of the country lies Le Pays Basque, the Basque country. It's one of the 90 départements called les Pyrénées-Atlantiques. You may know it for its surf spots like near Bayonne. It's the northern tip, 20% of Le Basque country in its entirety. The rest of it is on the other side of the mountains, in Spain. Le département was created by the French Revolution in 1789. But the 2 halves of the Basque country were actually an independent kingdom for a while, way before, and one of its kings became the French king Henry IV in 1589. On the other side of the mountains, on the Mediterranean Sea, in the southeastern corner of France, lies Le Pays Catalan. It's the north of the wider Catalonia region found in Spain south of the French border, which has been part of France since 1659. Nowadays, it's another département called les Pyrénées-Orientales. For some reason, some Basque and Catalan in Spain have long wanted to be independent from Spain, that is. Recently, Catalonia actually attempted to secede, which didn't go too well with the central government. In the Basque country, a terrorist group was active until the 1990s. In contrast, the French Basque and Catalan seem quite happy being part of France. The most prominent mountains in France are les Alpes et les Pyrénées, both pretty high, with the Mont Blanc, the highest in Europe at over 4,800 meters. There are also Le Jura et les Vosges in eastern France. Then you have the old mountain ranges, Le Massif Central, highest altitude over 1,800 meters, with lots of old and extinct, for now, volcanoes, and Le Massif Armoricain in Brittany, which is more high hills than anything else, really, towering at 417 meters. Then there are 2 large plains around the large rivers, Le Bassin Parisien around the River Seine, with Paris in the center, and Le Bassin Aquitain around La Garonne, with Toulouse in the center. The rest of France are rolling hills, with a few very flat marshlands like La Camargue in the south or Les Marais Poitevins on the Atlantic shore. Talking about rivers, all the largest French cities are established on the largest rivers: Paris, Toulouse, Lyon, Nantes, with the exception of Marseille, which is on the sea. In France, there are 7 regional winds which cover or blow over 500 kilometers or less. The best known is Le Mistral, which is mostly fair-weathered, cold and dry, that blows from the north in summer as well as in winter over the Rhône Valley, the Marseille region and Corsica. La Tramontane is a cold and dry fair-weathered wind blowing from the Aquitaine region towards the Mediterranean Sea. In the opposite direction, you have Le Vent d'Autan, which comes from the southeast and, depending on the circumstances in Spain or Denmark, brings rain or shine. Le Sirocco blows across the sea, the Mediterranean Sea, coming from Africa, goes over Corsica and the south of France and brings rain and often sand particles, which make for very dirty cars when left outside. In the north, we have Le Suroît et Le Noroît, which are cold and wet, blow from the Atlantic Ocean across Normandy and Brittany or the Atlantic coast more to the south. There's also La Bise, which is dry and cold in good weather, coming from the north and northeast and blowing over Lorraine and Savoie. With 68 million inhabitants and over 550,000 square kilometers, France has a population density of around 121 people per square kilometer, which makes it quite underpopulated compared to its neighbors. Well, apart from Spain, where there are only 87 people per square kilometers, but that's because the center of the country is actually a desert. The population per square meter is 277 in the UK, 239 in Germany, 461 in the crowded Netherlands, and 195 in Italy. Over 75% of the French population is concentrated in 20% of the territory, with 20% of the inhabitants, that's about 12 million people, living in the Paris region on just 2% of the territory. Other densely populated regions are those of large valleys, seashores, border areas, northern and southeastern regions, i.e. regions where there are large cities because obviously population density and urbanization are linked. From La Meuse in the northeast, near Luxembourg, to Les Landes in the southwest, south of Bordeaux, densities are much lower, especially in the Massif Central and Le Limousin. We French call this the Diagonale du Vide, which can be translated as the empty corridor. This diagonal concept often comes up in discussions about France's urban-rural divide, particularly because of the corridor's population being aging, the fact that there are fewer jobs out there with a lack of public services. France is also home to a diverse array of wildlife with the presence of certain emblematic species such as bears. Historically, they were native to France. They became extinct in the country in the early 20th century and have been reintroduced in Les Pyrénées. Beavers, also natives, have made a comeback. They were successfully reintroduced in certain areas, particularly in the northeast and along the waterways around the Rhône River. Wolves, they are now present in 2/3 of the territory, primarily in the Alps and Le Massif Central. Flamingos, all over Camargue and some other wetlands in the south of France. And finally, eagles. Several species are in France, mainly found in the mountains.